What's up, everybody? It's Well the Black Pen. Well the Black Pen. Happy Tuesday. I hope all of you are good, great, in good health. I hope your families have decent relationships. Obviously, a lot going on in South Africa, as you guys know. For some reason, of course, because we have TikTok memory, social media memory. There was a time when Paul Kagame sort of undertone threatened Cyril Ramaphosa. We've forgotten all about that. There were 14 soldiers that died in the DRC in their so-called peacekeeping commission. That's come and gone, and life moves on as usual. We're currently dealing with a potential case for treason against AfriForum and Solidarity. The leaders there, I don't know if it's Flip Base, I could be wrong, but Kali Kriel, the CEO of AfriForum, I think one of the leaders of Solidarity, these guys are in America at the moment, currently trying to speak to the government there. And many people are accusing them of treason because a lot of the information they're sharing there is misinformation. It's not true, and it's painting South Africa in a bad light. And on top of that, they're going around saying the government has opened a case against them. It's not the government. It's really not. It's private individuals, citizens. I think Umkhonto weSizwe, a political party, has done so as well. So that's the one thing, of course. Outside of that, what I wanted to speak about today is about children, parenting, more especially. Two things. Number one, the concept of godparents, and number two, the concept of trust funds. Okay. Let me see if is there anything I missed in terms of what's trending that I think is worth raising. Oh, the VAT issue. Cyril Ramaphosa, not Cyril, but the government or the ANC saying that they're potentially looking into speaking to the EFF to help them vote for VAT to be increased by 2 percentage points. And Julius Malema was like, I said, no one has spoken to us, Baba. So we'll see how that goes. I think the 12th of March is the date for the budget speech. I don't know if they will have found a solution by then. I saw Minister of Finance, Enoch Godongwana, speaking about how 19,000 school teachers in KZN might have their jobs at risk because they don't have money. Like, before I start with my topics for the day, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to understand that you can't keep giving people things without expecting something back. The social welfare system we have in South Africa is unsustainable. It's unsustainable. Like, you don't have to be a genius to figure this out. I'm going to give you a child grant. I think it's 570 or 500 and something for 18 years, right? You're going to go and study for free and get fed at the school. An education that actually doesn't teach you any skills. So we're not really banking on you actually becoming something worthwhile. Then if you're lucky, you get to go to tertiary, NSFAS, again, free of charge. You get given up an allowance. So you eat, you have a place to stay. It's a party. You can drink, get drunk, get high, sleep with whoever you want at varsity, party time, get a useless diploma that doesn't really mean anything. If you're lucky. If you're not lucky, immediately after 18, we can put you on the SRD, Social Relief for Distress Grant of 370, I think it is now. And you can have that, boy. Even after you graduate, if you don't have a job, you can have that all the way till you turn 60 or 65. Not sure of the age. From 60, 65, you're now a pensioner, and you can enjoy the 2,000 Rand old age grant. In that time, you are probably given a free house in the form of an RDP, and there are feeding schemes that, like, it's not sustainable. The whole concept of a grant is meant to be like a leg up. Like, we'll help you up, but then you must get up and you must fucking move. If you're not getting up at any point and you're going to remain a perpetual beggar, dependent on the system, it's not worth it. And that applies to like everything. Like, we're not creating taxpayers. If anything, we are hemorrhaging taxpayers. We are destroying businesses. Our government, which is I'd like to argue, leaning socialist government, doesn't actually have a plan to capacitate our businesses to ensure that those businesses are making enough money to run the social welfare system. A lot of the big businesses are foreign owned. A lot of the local businesses have to jump through hoops and red tape. A lot of their friends who are entrepreneurs and the like blow their money overseas or move their money offshore. Where's the money supposed to come from? They preach, we'll create jobs, and I've got a WhatsApp group. It's called the Penwell WhatsApp group. And there's over 320 people in that group. For anyone who wants to join, you can hit me up on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook via DMs. I'll add you to the group. It's a chat group. We speak about just current affairs and the like. Guys were debating yesterday this thing of, but government is responsible for creating jobs. No, government is not responsible for creating jobs. And the key word there is responsible. It is not their responsibility. What is government's responsibility? Government's responsibility is to ensure that we get our services. You have clean running water. Of course, because our electricity is run under a legislated monopoly in ESCOM, we must get access to electricity if we're paying for it, of course. Our roads must be decent and not have potholes. And then where we have a socialist aspect of our country, the schools, the healthcare systems, the government department, they must have platforms where we can get serviced or served. If I need an ID, if I need a passport, if I go to a public clinic or public hospital, there must be nurses and doctors and equipment and medication. If I go to a public school, there must be classrooms, there must be desks, there must be teachers there, etc. The jobs that come there are a byproduct of the services they are meant to deliver. It is not that government has to just create jobs. They have to deliver services. In the same way, when you set up a business, a private business, you're not doing it to create jobs. Anyone who's saying that is probably lying or is ignorant. You create a business because you're trying to sell a product, a good or a service, and you're trying to make money, and in particular, you're trying to make a profit. You end up hiring people to help you meet those ends, those objectives. I will hire you because I need a cashier to make sure that I collect my money. I will hire you because I need someone to work in the kitchen to provide this product or good that someone needs. I will hire you because I need someone to provide this service. It's not because I'm creating jobs. That's why they don't create jobs. But because they hear people complain about jobs, that's why people now start losing their mind. But government promised us they can't. Government can create jobs tomorrow. They can be like, guys, we've got jobs for all of you. We'll pay you 50 Rand a month. 50 Rand. And you're like, so the issue is not the job. The issue is something else. And that's the problem. People don't want jobs. People don't need jobs. People are trying to find platforms and avenues and opportunities for them to add value and be able to extract value so that they can take that money and go and get a place to stay, buy a car, pour fuel, pay for their children's fees, buy food, etc. That's what people need. In countries that are very wealthy, places like the United Arab Emirates, Abu Dubai, the Emiratis, they don't need jobs. They don't need to work. The money they make from oil is so much that they are rich. What do they need from their leadership, their sheikhs? They need service. They need the roads. They need people cleaning up. And because they don't need to work, they import that labor. You've got guys from India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and other poorer nations that come in there to be labor. The bulk of the labor force in the Emirates, in the Emirates, are foreigners because they don't need jobs. So you don't need jobs. You need a government that provides services and has the right staff to ensure that. And you need a government that creates a platform for businesses, self-employed people to be able to thrive. That's how it works. And a lot of people kind of miss it. If our government could provide its services using AI technology, automation, hiring cheaper foreigners, but South Africans were being served and South Africans were able to have a decent way of life, we wouldn't need jobs. If your family was rich, you don't need a job in your family. You need to make sure that whatever investment portfolio, trust fund, business that is run is sustaining your family. You can choose to work, but the dividends you earn just by being family means you don't need a job. And yeah, anyways. Speaking of families that are rich, my first topic is trust funds. So many people speak about trust fund babies, and many people don't really know what that means. I would love my children to be trust fund babies. A trust is a legal body. It is something like a company. To me, how I explain it easily is it is a vault. It is a safe. But it's just a piece of paper that says, Penal has created a vault, a safe called a trust. I can do one, I think it's called inter vivos, amongst the living, and then there's another one that kicks in after I die, and it has beneficiaries. I can be a beneficiary, my children can be beneficiaries, my extended family can be beneficiaries, my friends can be beneficiaries, a charity organization can be a beneficiary, a school can be a beneficiary, an art museum, a political party. I can choose who is meant to benefit from this vault that has some assets in it, a trust. Once you register this thing, they move your assets. Assets now could include cash in the bank. But for many people, it's things like property. It's things like shares in companies, your investment portfolio. If ever there's artworks or jewelry that is worth anything, you can even put, if you think it's valuable enough, you can put family albums, you can put books that you've written, etc., in that trust. Assets that you think are worth anything. And then you get a trustee who will then oversee these things. You can do it at a bank. Banks have got trusts available. You can do it with lawyers. Lawyers can set up a trust for you. Decent trusts are quite expensive, sadly. And one of the pieces of advice I've received from a friend who's a registered financial advisor, if not planner, is if you don't have assets over 2 million, 3 million, forget about a trust, because the cost of a trust is not worth it. For some people, registering a trust can be 10,000, 20,000 Rand just to register it. So you can see that for the 99% of South Africans, they won't be able to afford it. On top of that, you have to maintain it every year. There's a cost to maintaining a trust every year with the trustee. Depending on the assets that you have, the trustee pays themselves a salary, or they pay themselves a percentage of the value of the trust. You've got a trust of 10 million Rand. They say, look, our rate is 3% of that 10 million every year. I think that's 300,000 Rand, if I'm not mistaken. They pay themselves from that. If the trust assets go up in value, they could also pay themselves bonuses because maybe they manage the assets in the trust. So trusts can be quite pricey, but they are a vault to protect you. Trusts are also taxed at the highest rates in this country. It's either 40 or 45%. So if your trust is making R1 million profit in a year, you're looking at about 400 to 450,000 Rand going just to tax. Whereas companies are taxed at 28%, which is less than even individuals who earn well. So trusts you normally use for property and you normally use for assets that you're hoping are not going to be making a lot of money. So that when you die, they are not moving your properties into your children's names because there's like estate duty and other taxes that get charged on that. To avoid those, you say, here's a 2 million Rand house. It's going to be registered under a trust. I'm going to live in it as a beneficiary. As soon as I die, my children become the beneficiaries, but the house remains under a trust. Similarly, I've got a company, a big company. We call it a family company. It's making a lot of money. If I move this company from my name when I die into my children's names, there are going to be so many different taxes and documentation, all these things that need to be done that are going to cost a lot of money, especially the lawyers. So I'm going to put it in a trust. I'm going to be a beneficiary so that outside of just being an employee, getting paid a salary, I earn dividends through the trust. And then I put my children as beneficiaries as well, and they can earn dividends. Essentially, when you say trust fund baby, you're speaking about someone like that. The parents put assets, money, shares in this thing. And then later on, the children then started being, maybe at the age of 18 or when they get to university, they start getting the dividend payouts from the trust. So your parents left 20 million in assets, in shares, etc. And that 20 million maybe pays out R1 million a year. And you've got 2 kids. So those 2 kids get 500,000 in dividends from this trust every year. Every year they get. So that pays for their accommodation, their schooling, their food. And they're like, hey, bro, I'm a trust fund baby. I'm living the life. I can buy myself a car and because I get dividends from this trust. Over time, I can choose that maybe I can choose new beneficiaries, my own children or my partner or whatever the case may be. If there are criteria for the trust, I can choose to educate myself and maybe become the trustee or maybe be involved in the management of the assets in the trust after having conversations with the trustee. And that becomes a trust fund baby. But that is not the only way to be deemed a trust fund baby. And it's because a lot of people don't understand the dynamics. If your parent takes out life insurance of, let's say, 5 million Rand, and they put in their will that I've taken out life insurance of 5 million. As soon as I die, I'd like this 5 million to be invested in a money market account that hopefully is at inflation in terms of returns higher than inflation. So let's say it's returning 5% a year. 10% would be 500,000 to 250,000 Rand per year is what it pays out to you. If there's someone managing that money, maybe in the world there's a guardian, your uncle, your aunt, your grandmother, your grandfather, they take care of that money per the will. And it's written there and there's an affidavit and they have all the legal status, etc. And they make sure that every time there's a payout from this account, it goes to you directly, or it goes to paying your school fees, paying for your food, paying for whatever the case may be. In that instance, you can almost go out there and say, well, I'm a trust fund baby because my parent left life insurance. It wasn't life insurance that kicked into a trust fund, although that option is there. And if you were to get decent financial advisors, maybe they would look into those options. Let's take this 5 million. Let's set up a trust for you so that your money is protected. Let's make sure that this money is diversified into portfolios and assets that earn well, that are decent, that are going to go up in value. And we'll make sure that you do decently. So you can have that. But you can just have the life insurance payout and have it sitting invested somewhere. And the interest, the income, let's say maybe your mom, dad left you a property portfolio under a company of a block of flats with 100 tenants. And that block of flats pays you 50,000 Rand a month. That comes to you because you've been put as one of the shareholders, or the will stipulated. If we ever die, our shares are inherited by our child. I bequeath my shares to my child to make sure that they're taken care of. Again, those shares can be either put in a trust or they can just be put into your name. If you're a major over the age of 18, good to go. If you're a minor, they may need a legal guardian to look after that money for you. It is not a trust in terms of the legal definition of what a trust is, but you're still somewhat a trust fund baby. Your father could leave you 10 taxis that each are paying you 30,000 Rand a month that you get to take home. Again, you're almost like a trust fund baby because you're inheriting something. What's important for many of us as parents to do, especially when you're planning to have a child, during pregnancy, when you have a child, if the child is 10 and you've never thought about this, let's have the conversation. Let's speak about how much do our children cost? How much do we think our children are going to cost until they get to a point where they are hopefully independent? How we normally measure independence is either you have a matric, a grade 12, or you have a tertiary qualification, a diploma or a degree. And from there, we're like, look, I've tried my best. That's why a lot of parents will have a celebration after graduation. They'll give you the key and have a 10 because they're like, you are now, I've given you all the tools I can to and be independent. It's now up to you. So you say maybe up to 18 or up to 25, 23, whatever. This is how much I think my child's going to cost. And let me now work it back to today's money. How do I take out life insurance? How do I maybe buy assets? How do I draft a will? Could be just a piece of paper. It doesn't necessarily have to be registered with a bank or a lawyer. Just as a start. How do I maybe record a video that I then share with certain people that I trust? This is what I'd like to leave for my kids. I'd like to leave this and this and this and this. If I lose it, it's fine. If I gain more, then you guys will negotiate. But for now, and we update that every year. I think there's a week somewhere in there where they celebrate wills, will awareness or something, where lawyers are like, we will help you draft the will for free. What they don't tell you, of course, most of the time is you'll have to pay to manage that will every year and for them to take care of it and keep it in safekeeping. But the bottom line is have a week of awareness. Doesn't have to be once a year. It can be more than once. We can decide. How do we ensure that we protect our children if ever anything were to happen to us? And then we speak life insurance. We speak about trusts and the cost of trusts. We speak about companies. What options do we have to register our children as shareholders and the like? We speak about, we don't have closed corporations anymore. Assets. Do we register our assets in our children's names? Our bank accounts. Things like passwords. Things like emails. Things like having the right people taking care of them. Very important. This now drives me to my second point of why I made this video today. The concept of godparents. I'm a godfather. Sounds pretty dope, Don Corleone. But we don't know, as ordinary people, and in particular black people, we don't know what godparents are. It sounds cute. You're going to be my godmother. And we don't really know what that means. And it is arguably the most important decision and discussion you need to have regarding your children. More than the will, more than the trust, more than whatever school you're picking for them today, the godparents are so fundamentally important. And most of us, it is assumed by default, if I pass away and my parents are still alive, my children will go and live with them. Or if I pass away and the mother's parents are still alive, my children will go and live with them. Or if I have a brother or a sister, if the mother has a brother or a sister, their uncles and aunts, the children will go and stay with them. These are assumed. And in most cases, that's exactly what happens. Someone passes away, the child goes and stays with ugogo. But there was never a real plan for who is actually meant to be your child's godparents. The godparents essentially are meant to be the legal guardians if ever anything were to happen to you. And the legal guardians of your children are meant to be essentially deputy parents. Who are the people in your life that you trust with your money, with your assets? People you trust to babysit your children on weekends. People that you share maybe a religious affiliation with. People that you share a cultural link with. People that have the same outlook and vision for children. I want my children to be dynamic. I want them to travel the world. I want them to have a high qualification like engineering or law, where you are aligned. The assumption that your parents are like that is decent-ish, but it's not foolproof. Many people pass away, their parents shove their kids in boarding school, and you didn't want that for your kids. Many people have whatever belief they have. Soon as you pass away, your mom is there dragging your kids to church every Sunday, and you don't even like church. You don't believe in Christianity. And now your children are being force-fed this belief system that you don't like. Now your children are being taught, go and study education. You're like, that's not what I wanted for my kids. I wanted them to actually start businesses. I wanted them to be hustlers. I wanted them to, whatever the case may be. And you're meant to go and find the type of people that are aligned to what you want for your children. Hopefully they have children as well. Hopefully they are raising their children in the same type of mold, so that if ever something happens to you, they automatically are transferred to your kids and they carry on. Your mom and dad wanted you to travel the world. They wanted you. And in that, the conversations we had is they set up a trust. We have a will and this money is here. So as much as you're getting like a 500,000 Rand a year payout, it is my responsibility as your godfather, as your godmother, to take 50,000 Rand of this money and to make sure that you travel. I'll take some of it and pay for myself. I don't have money, but these were your parents' wishes. They were written down maybe, or we had the conversations. You can do this, of course, with the grandparents. But many of us have got to disconnect because of just generational misalignments. And your parents end up raising your children in a way that you never wanted. And your children miss out. And your best friends who want to raise your children the way you wanted are not allowed near the kids. Because your mother, your father have just taken ownership of the kids by default. Your brother, your sister that you actually haven't even spoken to for years are now looking after these kids. And you're like, they didn't even visit them during the school holidays. What's also important with godparents, besides picking them, number one, you don't have to have one or two. You can have 10. You can actually have a group, a WhatsApp group, or you can once a year or once every 6 months send out a report if ever anything were to happen to me. This is what I'd like for my kids. These are the various stakeholders that I'd like in my children's lives. Some people pick godparents because they have money. And I know it sounds silly and it sounds very shallow, but it's like, well, I would like someone that has the means to take care of my child. Why would I want my child to be taken care of by my grandparents who are my parents who are struggling themselves? So I'm going to try and find someone, and they need to agree. I love your kids so much. Yes, I'm rich. Maybe you're not that rich, but I will take your children. I will make sure they go to good schools. There are many children that are in boarding school because the mom was a domestic worker somewhere, or was a cleaner somewhere, or the father was a security guard somewhere. And the boss of this person sends the kids and pays for their boarding education, boarding school tuition at a decent school. There are many black kids who are in top schools because their parents work for some rich person somewhere or some person who's better off. And you're almost like, if ever anything happens to me, I don't want these kids yanked out of the school and then sent to the village or to the township. I'm hoping that you can be my children's godparents and we can kind of make it work some way. And it happens. And then make sure that your children are spending sufficient time with their godparents. School holidays, weekends if they're close enough, chatting via video, because these are the deputy parents. These are the people that if anything happens, your children will have to go live with. Now, your child's going to live with an aunt they barely know from a bar of soap. They're going to stay with grandparents who speak a language they don't even quite understand. I speak English, I go to the school. Now that my parents have passed away, it's like, man, ngikhuluma isiZulu, oh, gogo, ngikhuluma isiZulu. I don't understand it. There's a misalignment. Meanwhile, there are all these other friends and other people that my parents loved and spent time with that I got to know and got to visit, and we had play dates and sleepovers. I'm no longer seeing those people. It's traumatic to the child because there wasn't decent planning for this. So we really really need to look into this. And if you can draft the will, you put the names there. You can always change them. You can make a video and be like, these are the people I want to take care of my kids. And in a situation like mine, where you've got children with different people, the godparents also don't even need to be the same. So you might find, let's say you're a man, you've got children, two different women. You are married for 5 years with a lady, you've got a child. You're married again with another lady, you guys have 2 kids. They have their own families, these women. So some of the godparents, and they have their own friends. Some of the godparents can come from their family members and friendship circles. And then some of the godparents can come from your family members and your circles, to be like, these will be the people that represent me. I think more than anything, that's what we're trying to say. Who are the people that can best represent you when it comes to being a parent for your children? That should be the godparent for your child. Doesn't matter if they're younger than you. Doesn't matter if they are of another race. Doesn't matter if they're of another religious background. You're like, this person is the best representative of what I'd like for my children. They love rugby. They love hiking. I know my children will be in good hands here. And even if my kids go to boarding school, during holidays, I'd like them to spend time with these people, this person, because these people know exactly what I was trying to achieve. I want my children to be critical thinkers. I want my children to listen to Kanye West. I love my children to become hustlers and start businesses. And this is the person that's best suited for what I want for my kids. And I'm going to make sure that my children are exposed to these people. That's all I wanted to share with you guys today. Hope you'll have a great and blessed day. And I'm looking forward to catching up with you guys again soon. Pen you all the black pen, pen really pen elimnyama, pen you all the sword pen. Have a great and blessed day. Cheers.